In the courtroom of Jalapa, Veracruz, everything seemed to follow the established protocol for the hearing on the custody of a gravely ill millionaire entrepreneur. However, something unexpected happened when his daughter, who had just turned 7, stood up with astonishing determination and declared before everyone present, "I am also my dad's lawyer." With her school backpack adorned with drawings in her small hands, the girl began to present irrefutable evidence. Secret recordings and family secrets that exposed the true nature of her absent mother and ambitious uncle, who sought only control over the fortune. In that crowded room full of people, frozen in anticipation, the little girl changed the course of justice, and the truth erupted before everyone's eyes, so that no one could ever forget it. The Palace of Justice in the municipality of Jalapa buzzed with an electric anticipation that felt dense in the morning air. Reporters from various media outlets jostled to secure the best seats in the back rows, while lawyers, dressed in impeccable expensive suits, nervously shuffled papers at their desks. The case of Miguel Reynosa, technological magnate and founder of the company Solus Innovations, had attracted significant attention from both the business world and the legal community throughout the state of Veracruz. Miguel sat silently at the defense table. His presence, once imposing and authoritative, was now subdued by the weight of an unrelenting illness that gave him no respite. At 53 years old, his body systematically betrayed him, though his mind remained as sharp and brilliant as the first day he founded his empire. Multiple sclerosis had attacked his central nervous system for the past 3 years of his life, forcing him to use a motorized wheelchair and sometimes causing his speech to slow slightly due to muscle fatigue. Despite these evident physical challenges, his eyes remained alert, intelligent, and vigilant, especially when they rested with infinite love on his 7-year-old daughter, Luca Reynosa. Luca sat on a wooden bench right behind her father. Her small legs dangled over the floor without reaching it. Her chestnut hair was gathered in an impeccable ponytail, and she wore a blue dress with a white collar, making her look more like a heroine from a school photo than a participant in a high-stakes custody hearing. On her knees lay a worn violet backpack from daily use, covered in unicorn stickers and doodles made with glitter gel pens that sparkled under the courtroom lights. At the plaintiff's table sat 2 people who had not been part of Miguel's daily life for many years. His ex-wife, Raquel Villalobos, who looked elegant in a custom-tailored cream suit that probably cost more than the monthly salary of most average workers in the country. Raquel spoke tensely with her lawyer, displaying a concern that many suspected was purely performative. She had left Miguel and Luca 4 years ago, disappearing completely to pursue a modeling career on European runways, without even bothering to say a proper goodbye to her little daughter. Now, she suddenly claimed sincere concern for Miguel's ability to care for himself and Luca, given his health deteriorated by the progressive illness. Next to Raquel sat Jamie Reynosa, the older brother, whose presence was perhaps even more surprising and cynical than Raquel's herself. The Reynosa brothers had definitively severed all ties after a bitter dispute over company leadership 7 years ago, when Jamie nearly drove Solus to complete bankruptcy before Miguel heroically intervened to save it. Now, Jamie ran a competing firm, though with considerably less success than the technological empire his younger brother had built with such effort and foresight. Judge Elena Martinez finally entered the courtroom, and all present stood in a sign of respect for her authority. "Be seated," she ordered in a firm voice, adjusting her glasses and reviewing the voluminous file lying before her weary eyes. "We are gathered here today for case number 37,291 concerning the custody of Miguel Reynosa. As I understand, there are 2 petitioners seeking legal custody and full control over the financial affairs of Mr. Reynosa." She looked up with a stern expression demanding clear answers. "Is that correct?" Raquel's lawyer, a woman with sharp features named Veronica Huerta, immediately stood. "Yes, Your Honor. My client, Raquel Villalobos, former spouse of Mr. Reynosa and mother of his minor daughter, petitions for custody and financial guardianship in view of the defendant's physical inability to perform his basic functions." Veronica Huerta continued her speech with a coldness that chilled the blood of the few friends of Miguel present in the room. "We are firmly convinced that Mr. Reynosa's health has deteriorated to the point where he is no longer capable of making reasonable decisions regarding his own care or his significant financial assets, which directly negatively impacts the well-being of his daughter Luca." Jamie Reynosa's lawyer, a grey-haired man with an extremely expensive watch that caught the light with every wrist movement, stood next to support the petition. "My client, Jamie Reynosa, brother of Mr. Reynosa, joins this petition out of concern for both his brother's well-being and the interests of the family company that cost so much effort." Judge Elena Martinez nodded slowly, pondering every word spoken by the opposing lawyers. And what does Mr. Reynosa's lawyer say? A man in his 40s with kind eyes but serious and upright demeanor stood with dignity. Diego Cervantes, representing Miguel Reynosa, Your Honor. My client categorically contests both petitions and asserts that he is fully capable of managing all his affairs with reasonable adaptations to his current physical condition. We have recent medical reports from recognized specialists that fully support this position. The judge was about to speak when a small but firm voice cut through the formal atmosphere of the room. I object, exclaimed Luca Reynosa. All heads in the room turned simultaneously toward the sound of that childish voice, filled however with unusual confidence. Luca rose from her bench, clutching her violet backpack to her chest like a protective shield. Child, said Judge Elena Martinez with a softness she rarely displayed in her position. This is a very serious court hearing. You need to sit down and be quiet. I am also my dad's lawyer, declared Luca in a surprisingly firm voice for a girl of such young age, without the slightest hesitation, stepping forward. Luca passed the gallery barrier and stopped right next to her father's lawyer, Diego Cervantes, who looked at her with a mix of amazement and admiration. A murmur of surprise and restrained laughter rolled through the entire courtroom of Xalapa, and Judge Martinez struck the gavel once, instantly silencing the room with a dry and authoritative sound. Dear, said the judge, softening her tone even more, almost maternally, I understand you want to help your dad, but participating in court procedures requires lawyers with official licenses. Luca looked straight at the judge without the slightest trace of shyness in her big brown eyes. I have evidence, Your Honor. Very important evidence that no one else in this room has. She unzipped her backpack and pulled out a folder adorned with drawings of colorful squirrels, hearts, stars, and rainbows. Diego Cervantes looked as surprised as everyone else but quickly recovered from the initial shock. Your Honor, if you'll allow, I was not aware that my client's daughter planned to address the court in this manner, but perhaps we could take a short break to discuss this privately. No, interrupted Luca, and her small face suddenly became serious beyond her years. They are lying about my dad. Both are lying. I can prove it right here. A grave silence fell over the courtroom, so deep that the ticking of the wall clock could be heard. Miguel Reynosa extended his slightly trembling hand from the illness and touched his daughter's shoulder with infinite tenderness. Lucida, he pronounced softly, using the affectionate nickname he had given her since birth. Maybe now is not the best time. It's all right, Daddy, she whispered in response with an encouraging smile. I've practiced a lot. Then, turning to the judge and raising her voice so everyone could hear, she added, They don't care about my dad. They only want his money to spend on things we don't need. Raquel Villalobos jumped up sharply with a face burning from restrained anger. This is absurd. The girl is being grossly manipulated. Miguel, how dare you use our daughter in such a low way? Luca turned to face her mother, squinting her eyes with a frightening maturity. You left us. You didn't call me on my birthdays for years. You didn't come when I was in the hospital with appendicitis and I was very scared. You didn't even send a Christmas card. But now, when Dad is sick and rich, suddenly it's very important what happens to us. The courtroom exploded in whispers and exclamations of astonishment. Judge Martinez struck the gavel with force twice. Order. I demand order in this courtroom. She looked at Luca with a mix of professional concern and human curiosity. This is highly unusual, but I sense you have something significant you want to share with us. Mr. Cervantes, do you object to your junior colleague making a statement? Diego Cervantes held back a proud smile and firmly replied. No objections, Your Honor. Good. The judge leaned forward. Luca, I will allow you to speak, but you must be respectful and truthful at every moment. Do you understand what it means to tell the truth in court? Luca nodded solemnly in response to the judge's question. Yes, Madam Judge. Dad says that lying is the worst thing you can do because trust is like glass. Once broken, it can never be put back together as it was. Some people in the gallery exchanged impressed glances at the little one's wisdom. Well said, replied Judge Martinez with an approving gesture. Please continue, but try to be brief. Luca opened her folder and pulled out a stack of papers carefully organized with bright-colored tabs. My mom doesn't live with us. She left when I was 3 years old and hasn't cared about me since. My dad does everything himself. He helps me with homework every day, comes to my school plays, cooks me chicken soup when I'm sick, and reads me stories every night, even when his hands hurt too much to hold the book. She pulled out a sheet of paper from the folder. This is my report card. I have all 10s. My dad always helps me study. Then she quickly extracted another document. This is a letter from my teacher, Miss Patio, saying that my dad never misses parent-teacher meetings despite his wheelchair. She continued pulling out papers. Medical certificates, photos of her and Miguel at school events, birthdays, and family vacations. My dad is sick, but his brain works completely normally. His doctor, Dr. Rivera, wrote this. She held up an official medical report. It says that Dad can still make decisions about his life and his money himself. Diego Cervantes gently took the papers, studying them with growing interest and a triumphant smile. As for Uncle Jamie, continued Luca, turning to her uncle, whose face had turned red from pure shame. He tried to steal Dad's company even before I was born. Dad saved it and made it better than it was. Now Uncle Jamie wants it again because his own company is doing badly. Jamie Reynosa leaned forward aggressively. This is a farce. The girl is clearly repeating memorized phrases to harm me. Luca responded with an unexpected composure that left everyone speechless. I learned all this by listening. Adults think children don't understand what they say, but we do. We listen very carefully when they think we are playing. She turned back to Judge Elena Martinez. The most important evidence is this. From her violet backpack, she pulled out a small digital recorder that gleamed under the courtroom lights. 3 weeks ago, I heard Mom talking on the phone when she thought I was asleep. She was talking to Uncle Jamie during her visitation weekends. Raquel Villalobos jumped up sharply and shouted, "Your Honor, I object to this, whatever it is. It was obtained without my knowledge and without my legal consent." Objection sustained, ruled the judge with professional regret. Luca, I cannot admit recordings made without permission as official evidence. Luca's face fell, but only for a brief moment before she recovered. Okay. I wrote down what they said right after I heard it. She pulled out a composition notebook with my diary written in glitter pen on the cover. May 10th, she began to read. Mom said, "As soon as we get control of Miguel's money and company, we can finally live as we deserve. That medical report cost a lot, but it will pay off to the last Mexican peso if the judge believes Miguel can no longer manage his affairs." The courtroom in Jalapa exploded in a chaos of voices. Raquel's face lost all color, becoming pale as marble. Jamie Reynosa jumped up, pointing at Luca with a trembling finger. This is a farce. The girl is making it all up to make us look bad. I'm not making anything up. Luca's voice rose above the prevailing noise. You both want to take me away from my dad because of the money. You don't care about me or him. Judge Martinez struck the gavel with unusual force multiple times. Order! Order in my courtroom. As the noise slowly subsided, Miguel Reynosa reached out to take his daughter's hand. Tears of pride and more streamed down his face as he looked at her with a mix of admiration and deep concern. Your Honor, said Diego Cervantes when complete silence fell. Given these serious accusations and the evidence that Luca has so bravely presented, we request a full investigation before any decision is made. Judge Martinez nodded with a more serious expression than ever. Agreed. This hearing is suspended until a deeper investigation is conducted by the competent authorities. I appoint a special guardian to represent Luca's interests and require a full evaluation of Mr. Reynosa's cognitive abilities conducted by an independent medical expert. She looked at Raquel and Jamie with a stern gaze promising justice. I want the court to immediately investigate these accusations of conspiracy and falsification of medical reports. While Raquel and Jamie urgently conferred with their lawyers, Luca returned to her father. Did I do well, Daddy? Whispered Luca in a tiny voice full of hope. Miguel pulled her to him with his healthy arm, the only one that still obeyed him with some dexterity. You were incredible, Lucida. Simply incredible. What no one in the courtroom of Jalapa, Veracruz, could have predicted was that all this was just the beginning of a legal battle that would change not only the Reynosa family forever but possibly the very nature of family law throughout the country. The days following the initial hearing unfolded like a whirlwind of emotions and visits for little Luca Reynosa, who became the center of attention for local media. The court appointed Paula Gutierrez as a temporary legal guardian. A woman with a friendly face and graying hair who patiently explained that her job was to ensure the court considered what was truly best for Luca. Think of me as your special voice in court, said Paula during their first meeting in Miguel's luxurious apartment, located in one of the most prestigious districts of Xalapa. "I'm here to make sure everyone hears what you really want and need." Luca studied Paula attentively before nodding with her habitual seriousness. "Will you help me stay with my dad forever?" Paula smiled gently and replied, "I'll help the judge learn all the important things about your life with your father. Can you show me what a typical day is like for you too?" And so Luca led Paula through their daily routine with astonishing precision. The morning ritual where Rosa, their housekeeper for 5 years, helped Miguel with his physical needs while Luca happily got ready for school. How Miguel's assistant, Tom's, drove her to and from the academy, one of the most prestigious private schools in the district, ensuring she always arrived on time and safely. Afternoons spent on homework at the kitchen table with Miguel beside her, answering questions between important work calls that seemed never-ending. Evenings filled with dinner, conversations on diverse topics from science to art, and finally bedtime stories in Luca's room, equipped with a special chair for Miguel's comfort. "He never skips a story," said Luca with obvious pride. "Even when he has a very important meeting, he always says I'm more important than any million-dollar business in the whole world." Paula took detailed notes, asked insightful questions, and observed the genuine and deep bond between father and daughter that transcended Miguel's physical limitations. The apartment was equipped with various adaptations for Miguel's condition: ramps, wheelchair accommodations, and state-of-the-art home medical equipment, but it was clearly a home filled with love, laughter, and emotional stability. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city in her luxurious hotel suite, Raquel Villalobos hurled lightning bolts of pure contained fury. The hearing had not gone according to her master plan, and her lawyer did little to lighten the situation. "This is a complete disaster," Raquel said to Veronica Huerta bluntly, pacing back and forth across the room. "The girl painted me as an absent mother who suddenly appeared only for a check with many zeros. We need to change our strategy immediately if we want to win." Raquel paced the luxurious suite. Her designer heels sank into the imported plush carpet. "That little brat. Miguel clearly trained her to say all that. For heaven's sake, she's 7 years old. No child that age thinks about evidence and testimonies unless manipulated by someone older." Nevertheless, Veronica continued her assessment. "Right now, we are fighting at a disadvantage. Judge Martinez clearly found Luca convincing and honest. Our best approach now is to demonstrate that you've sincerely reconnected with your maternal instincts and that you're concerned about deteriorating health." Raquel stopped pacing and poured herself a generous glass of white wine. "Fine, I'll play the role of caring mother. Organize some charity event with sick children, have me photographed reading to orphans or whatever is needed, and arrange another meeting with Luca as soon as possible to convince her." "That might be hard to pull off now," Veronica warned cautiously. After the hearing, the court indicated that all visits must be strictly supervised by guardian Paula Gutierrez until further notice. Raquel's glass froze halfway to her perfectly painted lips. "What? That's outrageous. I'm her biological mother. It's standard procedure when there are accusations of potential manipulation or undue influence on a minor," Veronica explained patiently. "But it could work in our favor if you manage to impress the guardian with your sincere maternal devotion during these court-supervised visits." Raquel set the glass down with a sharp clink on the marble side table. "Fine, I'll give the performance of my life if necessary. I won't leave Xalapa without what I came for, no matter the cost." Jamie Reynosa was having an equally tense conversation in his corporate office with his lawyer, Hugo IVN. "This is a disaster," growled Jamie, loosening his Italian silk tie. "How did we not foresee the girl being such a decisive factor? She portrayed us as villains from a children's horror movie in front of the entire public." Hugo sighed, adjusting his reading glasses. "Children are unpredictable variables in court, but I agree we completely underestimated her. The good news is that the judge still has real concerns about Miguel's health. The independent medical evaluation could still work in our favor if the doctor is the right one." Jamie leaned back in his leather chair, folding his fingers in a thoughtful gesture. "I've already thought about that. I contacted Dr. Lorenzo Palacio myself. He's recognized as one of the best neurologists in the country, specializing in multiple sclerosis, and more importantly," added Jamie with a malicious smile, "he owes me a very big favor from years ago." Hugo's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Jamie, if you're suggesting what I think, you need to be very careful with the law." "I'm not suggesting anything illegal," Jamie interrupted softly. I'll just ensure that an outstanding expert in the field conducts a thorough examination of my brother's condition. If that examination emphasizes the progressive nature of the disease and its potential cognitive impacts, well, that's just a medical fact, isn't it? Hugo looked uncomfortable with the situation but eventually nodded. Just be careful. Judge Martinez strikes me as someone who doesn't miss a single detail, no matter how small. Don't worry, said Jamie, swiveling his chair to the city panorama. I've competed with Miguel my whole life. I know exactly how to beat him at his own game, even if it means using unconventional methods. In the Reynosa apartment, Miguel met with his lawyer Diego Cervantes and his childhood friend and business partner Nichols Cortzar. I still can't believe Luca did that, said Miguel, shaking his head in amazement mixed with a dose of fear for his daughter. I had no idea she understood so well everything going on around her. Diego neatly laid out papers on the dining table. It was remarkable, Miguel, but now we must be cautious. Raquel's lawyer is already hinting that you train her, which could backfire on us in the most catastrophic way if we don't handle the legal situation properly from now on. That's completely absurd, Miguel protested hotly. I tried to shield her from all this legal chaos. She figured it out herself because she's very observant. Nichols, who had been Luca's godfather since her birth, smiled warmly. Anyone who knows her wouldn't be surprised by her bravery. She's been advanced for her age since she started talking at 2. Remember how she corrected that museum guide about dinosaurs when she was only 4? Miguel laughed heartily but then winced in pain as a muscle spasm pierced his body weakened by multiple sclerosis. Nichols immediately reached for the medication on the nearby counter, but Miguel stopped him with a hand gesture. I'm fine, just a bit tired from the day's tension. Diego looked at his client with genuine concern in his eyes. Miguel, you need to be prepared for what's next. The court is ordering an independent medical evaluation, and you can bet Raquel and Jamie will push to find a doctor who emphasizes the worst-case scenario for your future health and your ability to care for Luca. Miguel nodded solemnly at his lawyer's words. I know, but my treating neurologist has documented that my cognitive functions remain untouched despite my physical limitations. This is a disease of the body, not the mind, and that should be clear before the law. Unfortunately, added Diego with regret, they'll focus on the progressive nature of the disease and the possibility of cognitive deterioration in the distant future. They'll argue that planning for your possible total incapacity is in Luca's best interests to secure her inheritance. Miguel's face hardened with iron determination. Then we'll fight that with all our might. I've already updated my advance directives and set up a trust fund for Luca with Nichols as the primary trustee. If, God forbid, I become incapacitated, I've ensured that Luca will be cared for by people who truly love her with all their hearts. They are fortune hunters who abandoned her when she needed the most. Nichols placed a comforting hand on Miguel's shoulder. We are with you, Miguel. We are all in this with you. Miguel smiled gratefully and then looked at the wall clock. I need to pick up Luca from piano lessons right now. Diego, can you stay for dinner with us? Luca will be thrilled to show you her evidence folder again. She added new colored tabs after yesterday's hearing. Diego laughed heartily at the girl's antics. I wouldn't miss it for the world. This girl will become a formidable lawyer someday if she chooses that path. After Diego and Nichols left, Miguel headed to the window overlooking the city of Zalapa. The greenery of the park stretched below, a reminder of life's resilience despite obstacles. He thought about his personal miracle, his reason to fight chronic pain every day of his existence. He never expected to become a full-time single father. He never imagined Raquel would simply leave their own daughter. In many ways, it seemed like a disguised blessing. It forced him to prioritize what really mattered in life, to be present as his own wealthy father had never been with him in childhood. The elevator dinged, and he heard Rosa greeting Luca and the piano teacher, Ciora Sanchez. A moment later, Luca ran into the living room with a beaming face. Daddy, I learned a new song today. Want to hear it right now? Her face was full of delight. All traces of the solemn Luca from the courtroom had completely vanished. Of course, Lucida. Let's go to the piano. As Miguel followed his daughter to the piano in the corner of the living room, he felt a wave of renewed determination. Raquel and Jamie might have money, influence, and cunning tactics at their disposal, but Miguel had something far more powerful. The absolute truth and a daughter brave enough to speak it before anyone. Luca carefully positioned her fingers on the keys and began playing a simple but beautiful melody. Miguel watched as her small hands moved with grace, her face the embodiment of absolute concentration, and he made himself a silent promise. No matter what it required, no matter what Raquel and Jamie threw at him, he would protect this precious and brilliant girl who had become his entire world. What he didn't know at that moment was that on the other side of the city, Raquel was making her own promises in front of the mirror, promises that would launch a chain of events capable of testing Luca's courage and determination as none of them could have foreseen. The next morning, Luca was getting ready for school when the home phone rang insistently. Rosa answered, then called Miguel with worry in her voice. "Mr. Reynosa, it's from the school. Director Mantes wants to speak with you immediately about something that just happened at the main entrance." Miguel took the phone with an expression growing more concerned. After a short conversation, he hung up and calmly turned to Luca. "It was Director Mantes. She says there was a situation at school involving your mom. Apparently, Raquel showed up claiming she needed to pick you up urgently for a scheduled medical appointment." Luca's eyes widened in fear. "I don't have any doctor's appointment today, Daddy. I feel fine." "I know, sweetie," Miguel said softly to calm her. "The school followed safety protocol and refused to let you go without my prior written permission. The director wanted to warn us and make sure there was no confusion." Luca bit her lip nervously. "Is Mom trying to take me away from you?" Miguel wheeled closer and took her small hands in his. "No one is taking you anywhere without your consent. The school did exactly what it should have. But I think it would be good if you stayed home today to be safer." Luca nodded and asked, "Can we have a movie day?" "Of course," Miguel smiled. "You pick the first movie." As Luca ran to choose the film, Miguel made another urgent call to Diego Cervantes about Raquel's unexpected appearance at the academy. It was not only alarming but potentially violated the temporary court orders. What worried Miguel most was the realization that the battle for Luca had escalated much faster than he had initially anticipated, and somewhere deep in his mind, a persistent fear took root. What if his health really worsened to the point he couldn't physically protect her? News of Raquel's attempt to take Luca from school quickly spread through legal channels. By evening, Judge Martinez issued a temporary restraining order requiring Raquel to stay at least 150 meters from Luca's school. Any contact must be strictly supervised by Paula Gutierrez. The incident only strengthened Luca's determination to protect her father but also marked the beginning of more sophisticated pressure tactics from her mother and Uncle Jamie, who did not give up so easily. 2 days later, Luca returned to school, where whispers followed her through the academy's hallways. During recess, she sat alone until her best friend Jimena joined her with a doubtful expression. "Everyone's talking about you, Luca," said Jimena, opening her lunchbox. "Mariana says her mom told her your parents are fighting over you because of $1 million inheritance." Luca focused on her sandwich, trying not to cry. "It's not quite like that, Jimena. It's much more complicated. And Diego says his dad read in the newspaper that you stood up in court and yelled at a very important judge." Jimena continued with curiosity. "Did you really do that?" "I didn't yell," Luca said quietly. "I just told the truth because no one else was saying it." Before Jimena could reply, Luca's teacher, Miss Patio, approached their table with kindness. "Luca, can I talk to you for a minute in the hallway?" Once there, the teacher knelt to be at eye level with the girl. "I wanted to check if you're okay, Luca. I know things at home are probably tough right now." "I'm fine, miss. Dad and I are managing together as always." The teacher's expression softened at that response. "You know you can talk to me anytime, right? Or to the school psychologist if you feel it's too heavy for you." "I know, thank you," Luca nodded politely. "Can I go back to lunch?" "Jimena is waiting." Returning to the cafeteria, she noticed several volunteer parents watching her and whispering among themselves with critical looks that made her feel very uncomfortable in her own school. After classes, instead of Tom's picking her up as usual, Luca found Paula Gutierrez waiting at the entrance. "Hi, Luca," Paula smiled warmly. "Your dad asked me to pick you up today. We are going to do something a little different. I'd like you to meet someone who wants to talk to you about how you feel with everything happening in your family." Luca got into Paula's car, clutching her violet backpack. "Do you mean a therapist? Dad took me to Dr. Torres last year when Mom didn't come again for Christmas." Paula nodded, impressed by the girl's vocabulary and understanding of her own life. "Something similar, yes. It's about Dr. Sofa Belton. She's a child psychologist who often helps the court understand what children think and feel during family disputes. They arrived at a modern office building where Dr. Belton greeted them in a room full of toys, books, and craft materials. She was younger than Paula, with curly hair and a kind smile that immediately inspired trust. "Hi, Luca. Paula will wait outside while we chat a bit, okay?" Over the next hour, Dr. Belton engaged Luca in various activities: drawing, puppet play, and answers to simple questions about her home life. Luca drew her apartment with Miguel in his wheelchair right next to her at the piano. She created a family tree placing Raquel far from the main trunk, almost at the edge of the paper. When asked to describe her parents, she spoke of Miguel with boundless love and admiration, of Raquel with wary detachment that caught the doctor's attention. "My mom is beautiful," said Luca, coloring a drawing, "and smells nice like expensive flowers. But she doesn't know important things about me." "What things?" asked Dr. Belton with professional curiosity. "She doesn't know I'm allergic to strawberries, for example. She made me eat strawberry ice cream the last time I was at her place, and I got red hives all over my body." Luca continued coloring without taking her eyes off the paper. "My dad always carries my medicine with him everywhere. He checks ingredients in restaurants. My mom just said I was making drama." Throughout the session, Dr. Belton noted Luca's superior emotional intelligence, her extensive vocabulary, and mature understanding of her legal and family situation. She also observed the genuine and deep attachment when Luca spoke of her father, contrasting with the obvious anxiety when mentioning her mother or uncle. At the end of the session, Dr. Belton spoke briefly with Paula while Luca waited in the reception. "She's remarkably well-adjusted considering such stressful circumstances. Her bond with her father is exceptionally strong and healthy from any angle. I see no signs of coercion or manipulation from the father. In fact, I'm struck by how independently she's formed her own opinion at such a young age. She's extraordinarily insightful," the doctor concluded. Paula nodded in agreement. "It fully matches my observations in the home setting." "And what about her relationship with her mother?" Dr. Belton's expression turned serious. "There's significant insecure attachment. Luca associates her mother with abandonment and neglect of her basic needs. That's concerning, especially given Raquel's sudden reappearance with custody demands." Meanwhile, in a secret meeting, Raquel and Jamie met with a public relations consultant named Diana Lee, known for helping high-profile clients manage their public image during controversial legal battles. "The current narrative is working completely against you," explained Diana, sliding a folder across the table. Local newspapers published the story this morning with a disastrous headline: "Dad's Little Lawyer. 7-year-old girl confronts her ambitious mother in court." Raquel held the newspaper to the floor in disgust. "This is ridiculous. They portray me as the villain. And that's because you're acting like one, Raquel," Diana said bluntly. Showing up at her school was a catastrophic step from a public relations standpoint. It confirmed every negative word Luca said about you before the judge. "I just wanted to see my daughter," Raquel protested weakly, trying to justify her actions. Jamie snorted from his seat. "Enough spectacle, Raquel. We are paying Diana to fix this mess, not to believe your suffering mother act." Diana ignored the bickering and continued her strategic plan to clean up both their images. "We need to change public perception immediately if we want any chance. I've arranged for you to volunteer at a children's hospital next week, reading stories to sick kids and bringing expensive toys. We'll have a professional photographer to capture your personal moments of maternal compassion." Raquel nodded enthusiastically. "Good, what else?" "You need to be seen creating a real home for Luca," Diana continued coldly. "I suggest renting a family apartment near the academy and furnishing a beautiful room for her. Make it look like you're planning a real future with your daughter." "I already have a place in mind," said Raquel with a calculating smile. "It's a few minutes' walk from the school." Diana quickly took notes. "Excellent. And about your public statements. No more comments on Miguel's money or the company. From now on, every interview must focus exclusively on your deep concern for Luca's well-being considering Miguel's health condition." While they planned their unified strategy, Miguel underwent the court-ordered medical examination with Dr. Lorenzo Palacio, the specialist Jamie had previously mentioned to his lawyer. Dr. Palacio was extremely thorough, conducting detailed physical exams, complex cognitive assessments, and studying Miguel's entire medical history from the initial diagnosis. Throughout the examination, Miguel noticed the doctor's attention was focused almost exclusively on the worst possible scenarios and the most severe future complications of multiple sclerosis. Mr. Reynosa, said Dr. Palacio upon completion, your cognitive functions currently appear preserved, but you understand that this disease is extremely unpredictable by nature. Many patients experience severe cognitive decline as the disease progresses to later stages, added the doctor in a tone Miguel didn't like at all. Miguel held the doctor's gaze firmly. I'm perfectly aware of the possibilities, doctor. I've lived with this diagnosis for 3 years. But statistical probability is not absolute certainty in my specific case. I've taken extensive measures to ensure protection even if my condition worsens physically in the near future. That evening, while Miguel helped Luca with her math homework, he noticed she was unusually quiet and distracted. Everything okay, Lucida? He asked tenderly. Luca didn't look up from her exercise notebook. The kids at school keep talking about us, about what happened in court and what they say on TV about Mom. Miguel set the pen aside with a sigh. I'm so sorry, sweetie. It must be very hard going through all this at your age. Mariana's mom told her not to play with me anymore, Luca continued in a trembling voice. She said our family has very serious problems. Miguel felt a wave of anger at the adult's cruelty but kept his voice calm for his daughter's sake. All families have difficulties, Luca. Some are just more noticeable than others due to circumstances. True friends will stick with you in tough times, no matter what others say. Luca finally looked at him, her eyes glistened with tears she didn't want to shed. What if the judge makes me live with Mom? What if I can't see you every day anymore? Miguel wheeled closer and sat her on his lap, hugging her with all the strength his arms allowed. That won't happen, I promise. Judge Martinez wants what's best for you, and we are showing her that the best is for you to stay here with me. But what if she's wrong? Luca insisted with that real childish fear. No what-ifs tonight, Miguel interrupted gently. Let's focus on what we know for sure. I love you more than anything in the world. You're smart and brave, and we have many good people helping us. Luca snuggled against his chest, finding comfort in her father's steady heartbeat. Promise me you won't let them take me. I promise to do everything in my power to keep us together, Luca, Miguel replied, choosing his words with infinite care. Some things are beyond our full control, but I'll never stop fighting for you. That's a promise I can keep absolutely, no matter what happens. When Luca finally fell asleep that night, hugging her favorite plush elephant, Miguel lingered by her bed longer than usual. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Another supervised visit with Raquel, more preparations for the upcoming hearing, and another exhausting physical therapy session to combat the growing muscle weakness. But now, in the silence of his daughter's room, Miguel allowed himself a moment of pure gratitude for the existence of this extraordinary girl who had given so much meaning to his life. What he didn't know was that on the other side of the city, Raquel was on the phone with a private detective she had hired without her own lawyer's knowledge. I need something concrete against Miguel, Raquel said in an icy voice. Something that will make even the most sympathetic judge doubt his ability to be a single father. There must be something. Side effects of his medications, irregularities in his business, or inappropriate caregivers in the house. Find me something I can use as emotional leverage. The next morning, Luca prepared for the visit with Raquel with noticeable reluctance in each of her slow movements. Paula arrived to accompany them to a family restaurant near the hotel, where Raquel was already waiting with a rehearsed smile. Remember, Paula said softly as they approached the table, this is just a short visit. I'll be with you the whole time. If you feel uncomfortable at any moment, just give me our secret signal. Luca nodded, squeezing Paula's hand. They had agreed that if Luca tugged her earlobe, it would mean she wanted to end the visit immediately. Raquel sat at a corner table in casual but obviously expensive clothes, a contrast to her usual glamorous international model image. Luca, darling, Raquel stood with open arms. Luca allowed a brief hug before slipping into the seat farthest from her mother. Paula sat between them with her notepad discreetly on her lap to record every interaction. I ordered chocolate chip pancakes, your favorites, said Raquel with forced enthusiasm. I like blueberry pancakes, Luca corrected quietly. I've always liked those. Raquel's smile faltered for a moment before shining again with its previous fake intensity. Of course, how silly of me. We'll change the order right away. As the awkward breakfast continued, Raquel tried to engage Luca with questions about school, friends, and extracurricular activities. Luca replied politely but with the minimum words, keeping her defenses up. When Raquel mentioned the new apartment she had rented especially for the two of them, Luca's hand involuntarily reached for her ear before returning to her lap. None of them noticed that at the neighboring table, a man with a hidden camera was discreetly filming their interaction for the private detective. The courtroom in Jalapa was more crowded than ever when, 3 weeks later, everyone gathered for the final hearing. Word had spread about the 7-year-old girl who stood up to defend her father, attracting public interest and national media attention. Several TV channels requested permission to broadcast the session, but Judge Martinez categorically refused, protecting the minor. "This is a family matter involving a little girl," the judge declared firmly. "It's not an entertainment show for the masses." Despite this, the gallery was filled with reporters, curious social figures, and some advocates for the rights of people with disabilities who were genuinely interested in Miguel's case. Luca sat with Paula Gutierrez in a small adjacent room, waiting to be called if the judge required her presence again. Miguel had requested that his daughter not have to endure hours of technical testimonies unless absolutely necessary. Judge Martinez agreed, assigning a bailiff to stay with them and provide periodic updates. Inside the courtroom, Miguel's wheelchair was positioned next to Diego Cervantes at the defense table. Despite an evident physical deterioration, he had suffered a significant symptom flare-up due to the stress of recent weeks. Miguel looked composed and dignified in a custom-tailored grey suit. Raquel sat at the plaintiff's table, radiating an image of restrained maternal concern in a conservative navy blue dress with her hair simply gathered. Jamie sat beside her, equally restrained in a dark suit devoid of his usual flashy accessories. Judge Martinez opened the session and then addressed all present with unquestionable authority. "Before we begin, I want to clarify something absolutely. This is not a circus, not a media event, and certainly not a battlefield for personal or business vendettas. This court's sole concern is to determine which decision best serves the highest interests of Luca Reynosa." She continued in a strict tone. "Anyone who loses sight of this priority will be immediately removed from this proceeding. Is that clear to everyone?" All lawyers nodded silently. "Very well. Let us proceed with the testimony of the independent medical expert. Dr. Palacio, please approach the witness stand." Dr. Lorenzo Palacio took the witness stand and swore to tell the truth. He presented his impressive qualifications before moving on to his evaluation of Miguel Reynosa. "Mr. Reynosa presents a classic picture of relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis now transitioning to a secondary progressive phase," explained the doctor. "His physical limitations are significant and progressing. Upper extremity function is impaired, and fatigue is a substantial daily factor." "And regarding his cognitive function?" prompted Raquel's lawyer, Veronica Huerta, seeking to deliver a decisive blow. "Current cognitive tests show preserved function," admitted Dr. Palacio. "However, a high statistical percentage of patients develop some form of cognitive impairment as the disease progresses. Considering the aggressive course of Mr. Reynosa's disease, cognitive decline is a real statistical probability in the next 5 to 10 years. Diego Cervantes stood for cross-examination with lethal calm. "Dr. Palacio, is it not true that many patients with this disease never experience significant cognitive deterioration regardless of their physical symptoms?" "That is true," Dr. Palacio admitted reluctantly. "Some patients maintain mental clarity throughout the disease's course. Has Mr. Reynosa shown any signs of cognitive deterioration to date?" "No, he has not." "Then your testimony about future decline is purely speculative, is it not?" The doctor shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "It is based on statistical probabilities. But you cannot assert it with absolute certainty in this specific case, correct?" "No, I cannot." The legal battle continued with the testimony of Dr. Sophia Belton, who presented her psychological evaluation of little Luca. She professionally recounted her sessions with the girl, emphasizing her exceptional emotional intelligence and unbreakable bond with her father. "Luca demonstrates a clear understanding of her family situation. I found no evidence of parental manipulation in her statements. Her concerns regarding her mother stem from genuine experiences of abandonment and inconsistency in care." Raquel's lawyer tried to discredit her by hinting at subtle fatherly influence, but Dr. Belton remained unshakable in her conclusions. The moment of highest tension came when Raquel Villalobos took the witness stand in the afternoon. She presented a carefully built image of maternal devotion, with tears in her eyes expressing remorse for her past absence. I made terrible mistakes. I was young and felt overwhelmed by motherhood at the time, she confessed in a voice that sounded convincing to many. But when I learned of Miguel's health, I realized Luca needs me more than ever. No child should become a caregiver for their father at such an early age. It's an unbearable burden. In support of her words, Raquel's lawyer presented a series of photographs taken by the private detective in recent weeks. They showed Luca helping her father with medications, reaching for items he couldn't, or holding the door for his wheelchair. These photographs prove that Luca is taking on caregiving duties inappropriate for her age, Veronica Huerta declared triumphantly. Miguel felt his heart clench at seeing how they distorted his daughter's voluntary and loving help, turning it into alleged trauma. Diego Cervantes requested a short recess to study the evidence and then went on the offensive. He called Rosa, the housekeeper, who testified under oath. I handle all of Mr. Reynosa's personal needs. Luca never bears responsibility for his medical or physical care. She is treated as a child in the house, not as a nurse. Then Diego presented a video recording that silenced everyone. This is Luca's birthday from last month. The video showed Miguel organizing a treasure hunt throughout the apartment, laughing with his daughter and lovingly guiding her as she solved complex clues. The video conveyed the essence of their relationship. Miguel as father and mentor, Luca as a happy and loved child. When the video ended, Raquel appeared visibly shaken. That same evening, unexpectedly, Raquel came to Miguel in his apartment. I'm withdrawing, Miguel, she confessed in a low voice in the dimly lit living room. Seeing that video today, I realized I really don't know her. Jamie convinced me all this was for the money and to get back at you, but Luca adores you in a way I can never match. I can't take away the only stable home she's ever had. The next morning, before a stunned courtroom, Raquel Villalobos officially withdrew her custody petition and signed documents granting Miguel full legal custody, with an agreed visitation schedule considering the child's rhythm. Judge Martinez, before finally closing the case, called Luca to the witness stand one last time. Luca, in all my years as a judge, I've rarely seen devotion like yours. Your father is very lucky to have you, and you are lucky to have him. Family is not just biology, it's about who stays by your side when things get tough. Over the years, Luca grew into a brilliant woman who never forgot the lessons from that courtroom in Xalapa. Miguel lived long enough to see her receive her law degree, specializing in defending children's rights in situations similar to her own. The story of the little lawyer became a legend of filial love. We learned that true wealth lies not in the bank accounts that Jamie and Raquel so craved, but in the unbreakable strength of the bonds we build through daily care, constant presence, and truth spoken from the heart, no matter how quiet the voice that utters it. This story leaves us a profound lesson, especially for those who have already traveled a significant part of life's path and understand that time is the most valuable resource we possess. Often, in old age or in the face of illness, the world tries to measure our value through physical productivity or earning capacity, forgetting that true human dignity lies in one's essence and in the love one has sown in others. Miguel Reynosa, despite his weakened body, proved that a father is defined not by the ability to run after a ball, but by the capacity to sustain his child's soul with words of encouragement and unconditional presence. The main lesson here is that children have a remarkable ability to see through appearances and material ambitions. They seek emotional security above empty luxury. Luca was not defending a millionaire, she was defending the man who read her stories and never let her down, reminding us that the most important legacy we leave is not material goods, but the love and respect we imprint on the hearts of those around us. In the end, earthly justice may be blind or slow, but a just heart is instantaneous and powerful when based on truth. We must not underestimate the wisdom of the youngest or the resilience of the most vulnerable, for it is they who point us back to what truly matters in this fleeting existence. Let this tale serve as consolation for those facing health adversities, reminding them that their value does not diminish with their limitations and that love is, ultimately, the only advocate we need to defend our truth.